Imagine a world where the wind could freeze your breath in midair, where snow blankets the land for months, and temperatures plunge well below what the human body can endure. This was the world of the Vikings. No modern heating, no insulated homes, no survival gear, just raw ingenuity, courage, and the will to endure. How did they survive when most would succumb to the deadly cold? For centuries, the Vikings thrived across the frigid landscapes of Scandinavia. Their settlements were not mere shelters. They were lifelines. In winters where snow could reach over 2 meters and nights lasted 18 hours, survival demanded more than strength. It demanded strategy. Vikings mastered the art of building with the earth itself. Their homes, longhouses, were made from timber, reinforced with thick layers of turf. The walls acted as natural insulation, trapping warmth from the central hearth. Roofs sloped sharply to shed snow, while entrances were small, limiting the icy winds that sought to invade. Every plank, every layer of moss, was carefully chosen to fight the cold. These structures could maintain temperatures far above the freezing blizzards outside, sometimes as much as 20 degrees Celsius warmer than the harsh world beyond the walls. Clothing was their armor against the frost, layer upon layer of wool, fur, and leather, carefully constructed to trap body heat while allowing movement. Even in temperatures that would immobilize an unprepared traveler, Vikings remained active, hunting, fishing, and tending livestock. They understood their bodies as tools, adapting every movement to preserve warmth and energy. Survival was not just about shelter. It was about energy. Vikings meticulously preserved food to endure the months when the earth slept beneath ice and snow. Dried fish, salted meat, and root vegetables stored in pits insulated by straw and soil provided the sustenance necessary to keep bodies fueled, hearts beating, and fires burning. But survival wasn't just physical. It was communal. Vikings huddled together, shared warmth, and passed down knowledge through stories and practice. Mental resilience, the courage to face endless nights and blizzards, was as crucial as the walls around them. Alone, the cold could kill. Together, they endured. Today, extreme winter survival is studied by scientists and adventurers alike. Yet, for all our technology, the lessons of the Vikings remain relevant. Ingenuity, preparation, and human resilience can turn a deadly landscape into a home. It is estimated that less than 10% of early settlers in similar climates survived without the precise skills the Vikings mastered. The Vikings were not merely warriors of conquest. They were architects of survival. They understood the world in ways we are only beginning to comprehend, how to live with nature, not against it. Their legacy is not only etched in history, but written into the very idea of human endurance. In the heart of the storm, they thrived, and their story reminds us, in the face of life's harshest winters, we too can endure, adapt, and triumph. Survival in the harsh northern winters was never an individual effort for the Vikings. The cold was not just a challenge of body. It tested the mind, the spirit, and the bonds between people. For a single person, even the most carefully built home or the warmest clothing could only do so much. It was the strength of community, the shared knowledge, and the willingness to work together that allowed entire villages to endure months of darkness, snow, and ice. Every task, from building shelters to storing food, was shaped by the understanding that survival depended on others as much as on oneself. Within a Viking settlement, life revolved around cooperation. Families worked together to prepare for winter months that could last half the year. Timber had to be chopped, fires were stored, and longhouses repaired before the first snowfall. Livestock needed feeding, and food had to be preserved carefully to last the months when hunting was impossible and crops were buried beneath frozen ground. Each of these tasks required coordination, planning, and a sense of responsibility to the group. One weak link could endanger the entire settlement, so every person's contribution mattered. Knowledge was one of the most valuable resources of all. Survival techniques were passed down through stories, songs, and hands-on teaching. Children learned early how to layer clothing to trap warmth, how to store vegetables underground, and how to maintain the fires that could mean the difference between life and death. Elders shared advice on reading weather patterns, recognizing signs of dangerous frost, and understanding which natural materials worked best for insulation. This knowledge was not written in books. It lived in the memory and experience of the people, shared openly because survival depended on it. Even during the coldest storms, community activities strengthened resilience. Families gathered around the central hearth, sharing warmth, food, and stories. Work and daily life became opportunities for connection. Hunting or gathering was rarely done alone. Groups ventured out together, protecting one another against frostbite, exhaustion, or the hidden dangers beneath thick snow. In the Longhouses, conversations and storytelling were not just entertainment. They were lessons in history, strategy, and survival. Every tale, every piece of advice, reinforced a culture built to endure extreme conditions. Mental strength was as vital as physical preparedness. The endless nights, blinding snow, and isolation of winter could be overwhelming, even for the strongest. Vikings understood that fear and despair could be as deadly as the cold itself. By fostering a sense of purpose and belonging, communities kept morale high. Rituals, shared meals, and storytelling provided structure and meaning, turning the harsh environment into a space where people could feel secure. This mental resilience, combined with practical skills, created a system where individuals could rely on both themselves and each other. The organization of settlements also reflected this focus on community survival. Homes were built close together to share heat and reduce exposure to wind. Livestock were kept nearby, not only for food, but also for warmth and companionship. Paths were maintained between houses, so that people could move safely during storms. Even the placement of longhouses in valleys or near forests was strategic, using natural landscapes to shield against wind and snow. Every aspect of the village was designed to maximize collective safety. Perhaps most remarkable was how Vikings treated knowledge as a communal asset. Secrets of survival were rarely hoarded. They were shared freely because one person's skill could save another's life. Younger members of the community observed and assisted elders, gradually mastering techniques through repetition and guidance. The survival of the group depended on teaching, mentoring, and practicing together. Mistakes could be deadly, so the culture emphasized patience, observation, and careful adaptation to the environment. Even in the face of nature's harshest challenges, this combination of shared effort, knowledge, and mental resilience ensured survival. While the cold could be unforgiving and storms could rage for days, Viking communities endured. They thrived not because they were stronger than the weather, but because they understood the power of unity and preparation. They turned isolation into cooperation, danger into routine, and the most brutal winters into a world they could live in and even call home. By studying their approach, we see that survival is not just about tools or materials. It is about people, knowledge, and the willingness to work together. The Vikings remind us that even in extreme conditions, human ingenuity, shared effort, and collective courage can overcome the odds. Their legacy is not only in history books or archaeological sites. It is in the lessons they left behind, showing that endurance is as much a product of community as it is of individual skill. Through cooperation, guidance, and resilience, the Vikings transformed one of the harshest environments on Earth into a place where life could not only continue but flourish. Surviving the deadly Scandinavian winters required more than just a strong home. It demanded careful attention to the human body itself. The Vikings understood that even the best shelter could not fully protect against frostbite, hypothermia, and the long, relentless nights when temperatures often dropped far below freezing. They relied on clothing and food as vital tools of survival, crafting strategies that allowed them to move, work, and thrive in conditions that would mobilize an unprepared person. Clothing was their first line of defense. Vikings did not have synthetic fibers or modern insulation. Instead, they relied on natural materials that could trap warmth while allowing flexibility. Wool was a primary choice, prized for its ability to keep people warm even when damp. Multiple layers were common, each serving a distinct purpose. Inner garments close to the skin to wick moisture, middle layers for insulation, and outer layers of leather or fur to shield against wind and snow. Every piece was practical, yet carefully constructed to maximize warmth while minimizing bulk. Fur was a key resource, harvested from animals native to the region. Foxes, reindeer, and other creatures provided pelts that were sewn into cloaks, hoods, mittens, and boots. These garments were not only functional, they were designed to retain heat around the most vulnerable parts of the body, hands, feet, and head. Even small details mattered. Mittens were often double-layered, boots lined with fur or straw, and hoods could be tightened to prevent wind from sneaking in. Vikings understood that losing heat through extremities could be deadly, so every layer had a purpose. Clothing was also adapted for activity. When hunting or traveling, garments needed to allow movement without exposing skin. The Vikings' layered approach made it possible to stay warm while walking long distances, tending animals, or chopping wood. Even in blizzards, they could continue their essential tasks without succumbing to exhaustion or cold. They understood the rhythm of winter survival. Activity generated heat, and clothing trapped it, creating a system that kept the body alive in extreme conditions. Food was equally important. Survival in the harsh north depended on maintaining energy through long months of scarcity. Vikings carefully preserved food to endure the winter, using techniques that allowed them to store it safely in cold conditions without spoilage. Fish was a staple, dried, salted, or smoked, providing protein and calories that could last for months. Meat from livestock or hunted animals was similarly preserved, often salted or hung in cool, dry spaces to prevent decay. Root vegetables, cabbages, and grains were stored in underground pits insulated with straw, keeping them from freezing while still accessible throughout the season. The combination of diet and clothing formed a lifeline. A well-fed body produces heat more effectively, and when coupled with layers of insulation, it could survive even the most brutal blizzards. Vikings understood this balance intuitively. They did not rely on a single solution. Survival was an integrated system, where clothing, diet, and activity were connected. Missing one element could spell disaster. Their approach extended beyond the individual to the community. Sharing resources was critical. Food was distributed among families, clothing repaired or passed down, and knowledge about how to layer garments or store provisions was shared from generation to generation. Mental resilience and collective effort were as vital as material preparations. Children learned early how to dress for the cold, how to hunt and store food, and how to respect the power of winter. Every action was part of a long tradition of survival wisdom. Even in modern terms, their methods were remarkable. While technology today can protect against freezing temperatures, the Vikings achieved survival with only natural resources and careful planning. They had no central heating, no insulated boots from a factory, yet they could endure winters that would challenge even experienced explorers today. This was not luck. It was a mastery of observation, experience, and adaptation. The lessons of Viking clothing and diet are more than historical curiosities. They remind us that survival in extreme environments requires understanding how the body works, how to store energy, and how to protect against elements. It is a story of human ingenuity, resilience, and the ability to thrive when the world seems impossible. By combining carefully crafted garments, preserved food, and community knowledge, the Vikings transformed one of the coldest places on Earth into a home. They were not merely enduring. They were actively conquering the challenges of winter, showing that preparation, intelligence, and adaptability can turn even the harshest conditions into a space where life can flourish. The Vikings were more than fierce warriors. They were master survivors, shaping their lives around one of the harshest environments on Earth. Winter in Scandinavia was not a season. It was a force, a relentless presence that could bury villages under meters of snow, freeze rivers solid, and turn the very air into a weapon. For early settlers, the cold was deadly. Without modern insulation, heating, or even proper roads, staying alive required skill, creativity, and a deep understanding of the natural world. And at the heart of this survival was the way they built their homes. Viking longhouses were far more than simple shelters. They were carefully designed instruments of protection, crafted from materials that were available in abundance, but used in ways that maximized their effectiveness against the freezing elements. Timber formed the skeleton, creating a strong frame that could withstand heavy snow and violent winds. But it was a combination of earth and moss that gave the walls their true power. Layers of turf were stacked on the exterior, acting like natural insulation. Moss, often packed tightly between the turf, filled gaps, preventing cold drafts from sneaking through. The walls were thick, sometimes several feet wide, and every layer was placed with intention. The Vikings understood that heat trapped inside was life itself. The roofs of these homes were equally strategic. Snow was a constant threat, and if it accumulated too heavily, it could collapse even the strongest structure. To prevent disaster, Viking roofs were sharply sloped, allowing snow and ice to slide off naturally. The steep angles also helped wind to pass over the house rather than battering it from above. That simple adjustment turned potential death trap into a resilient design, proving that survival often relied on understanding how nature behaved and then using it to your advantage. Inside, the layout of the longhouse further supported survival. The central hearth was not only a place for cooking, it was the heart of the home, radiating warmth throughout the structure. Smoke escaped through carefully designed openings in the roof, keeping the air breathable while the fire's heat spread to every corner. The floor might have been packed earth, often covered with rushes or straw, adding another layer of insulation against the frozen ground. Doors were small, limiting how much cold air could enter when someone went in or out. Even the placement of windows, or the absence of them, was deliberate. Fewer openings meant less heat lost, and when windows existed, they were often covered with animal skins or cloth to keep warmth inside. Vikings also adapted their shelters to seasons. In summer, longhouses could be ventilated, allowing fresh air in without sacrificing protection. In winter, every modification was aimed at conserving energy and body heat. This attention to detail was not accidental. It was learned through generations of trial and error. Each village became a repository of knowledge, where the most effective techniques were remembered and passed down. A poorly built longhouse could mean death, while a well-constructed one could allow an entire family to survive months of darkness and storm. The materials used were chosen with both practicality and science in mind. Wood was strong and flexible, able to bend under heavy snow without breaking. Turf, taken from the surrounding fields, not only insulated but also absorbed moisture, preventing walls from becoming damp and cold. Moss worked as a natural sealant, filling every crevice, while thatch or bark on the roof added another layer of protection. Nothing was wasted. Every piece of the natural world around them became part of a life-saving system. Even in the fiercest blizzards, these homes could maintain temperatures far above the freezing point outside. While the wind tore across open plains and snow buried everything in sight, inside a longhouse, families could cook, sleep, and gather safely. Children could play, and elders could rest without risking frostbite or hypothermia. The longhouse was more than a building. It was a sanctuary, a place where humans had taken the raw, merciless environment and found a way not just to survive, but to thrive. Understanding the brilliance of Viking shelter design offers more than historical insight. It reveals a profound lesson about resilience. These people were not passive victims of the cold. They confronted it, learned its patterns, and built a life around it. Every wall, every roof slope, every hearth placement was a decision made with survival in mind. In a world without modern technology, their wisdom turned the harshest winters into livable spaces, proving that human ingenuity, combined with careful observation of nature, can overcome even the deadliest challenges. The story of the Vikings is more than a tale of warriors and conquest. It is a story of human ingenuity, resilience, and the power of community. Against the deadliest blizzards, in landscapes that would challenge even the strongest among us, they did not just survive, they thrived. Every wall of their longhouses, every layer of fur and wool, every shared story and piece of wisdom was a testament to their determination and adaptability. Today, as we face our own challenges, whether in harsh environments or the storms of modern life, the lessons of the Vikings remain as powerful as ever. Preparation, knowledge, and the strength to work together can turn even the most daunting obstacles into opportunities for survival and growth. Look closely at their world, and you will see more than ice and snow. You will see human spirit at its most brilliant. Learn from it, carry it forward, and remember that no matter how fierce the storm, resilience, creativity, and unity can guide us through.